we're gonna go right into it, and for some reason I had a little end there, but in my mind, the attention engine is getting less relevant. So here's a couple stats, pretty recent ones as well. M&R benchmarks just showing that volume is increasing. So even nonprofits who didn't send as many emails are now sending more emails. Yay, that's a good thing. We should all be sending more emails, but the return for online revenue is going down. So that's kind of predictable. It's really noisy out there right now. Digital ads, as noted in previous speakers, still have pretty decent returns, but the competition is coming in. So if you were someone who was in on TV really early, that's awesome. Good job. And I'm so glad for people who did that, but for people who are now coming in, they're not going to see the same returns you did. And big point here is AI. AI overview is now how a lot of people search. I was on a team when ChatGPT came out. It was very, very like, oh, try the new tools. I'm trying new AI tools all the time, and they're fantastic. It also means that a lot of how we fundamentally use the internet is shifting dramatically, and even for my own website, 4% of the traffic is now ChatGPT and comes to our website. So I don't know if anybody has gone out there and is paying attention to their ChatGPT traffic, Perplexity, AI, all of those. It's really changing how people find us. So I say this a lot. For those of you who I'm connected with on LinkedIn, this will be annoying, but audience is not a community. And in nonprofit, we use the word community a lot to mean a lot of things, but we often just mean audience when we're talking about marketing. So just because you have someone's attention does not mean you're connected. It doesn't mean that engagement is belonging, and that's what a lot of people are looking for right now, is belonging to something, and nonprofits are positioned uniquely to give that. And just because you can personalize does not mean you are creating intimacy. And we kind of confuse that. We think that we put someone's first name in the email platform and that means they feel like it's just for them. We all know how these tools work. No one thinks that that's intimacy right now. And just because you have reach does not mean you have trust. So that's just frequently audience and community get confused. So when we talk about relational marketing, and for me, relational marketing is a step towards community-led marketing, which is even more powerful, but we gotta get there first. Relational marketing is really asking ourselves in nonprofit to have a totally different set of questions. So we're instead moving from how do we get the message out, which is often platforms. Shout out Engaging Networks, incredible platform, they're doing amazing work. I think the platform often is a little interchangeable for many nonprofits. There's lots of great platforms that exist out there. But we're kind of going, how do we get our messages out? We're seeking to increase engagement through those messages. That's the whole goal. Although, what does engagement mean? Maybe it's a bit of a question mark. And we're trying to stay visible primarily through broadcast. And so that's where we're talking to audiences, not to communities. And so when we talk about relational mindsets, we're really going, what are we creating for our relationship? Every communication touch point should be trying to build towards something bigger, and that's the whole point of relational marketing. And we're inviting people in, and we're inviting them to talk to us, and inviting our response, and we're helping our members, whether that's stakeholders, donors, constituents, connect with each other, and that's really, really powerful. And the focus really becomes on quality of those interactions, right? So visibility alone is not going to be enough. As the market gets flooded, we need to go, what is the quality, and how do we measure that? So I like to look at this as 6 steps, and I think most nonprofits are doing a really good job overall of creating places. So maybe the place is an online platform, maybe the place is a great event like this, maybe the place is people feeling part of a campaign because they donated, your email, welcome emails, all of those places. So people are noticing you. We've created places for that. Most groups are doing that great. Now we've got participation. I think more people are getting better at that participation. That's where most of you probably have great welcome email series. Hey, join us here, let's do the next thing together. We tend to stop right there. Connection between the people who care about the things we care about often is the huge drop-off point. It may happen in your social media. You may have a donor one-time events once a year, things like that can be great spots for connection. But what's the rhythm we're building for people to return? And I'm not seeing that many nonprofits who have an incredible spot for people to rhythm and return. Even further along the line, how are people contributing back to what our nonprofit is getting to do next? How can we engage those people to become advocates for us, which is the final step? Because that flywheel, Mike Jorkson might not be in the room right now, he talks about this. I love Mike's outlook on flywheel marketing, and community itself could be flywheel marketing. There's lots of ways to look at that. So we're trying to create relationships that get people to come back. And so when we talk about the systems and how this would differ between the two systems, the biggest thing with relationship systems is how are we inviting people to come back and engage with us? I don't know who follows all the LinkedIn fun algorithmic stuff. Richard Vanderploom just released something the other day, which was wildly depressing to those of us who engage on LinkedIn. But the best way to drive more engagement is to be engaging. And most of us aren't doing that, right? We're not getting out there in the comments, we're just blasting out the cool things we think our nonprofit is doing, but the nonprofit itself isn't engaging with anything that's out there. So that's really problematic, because when we get to the next step of our relationship system, building trust and deeper connections, we don't have a system set up to even start doing that with people in our networks. And the final piece, and this is the part that I love the most, is we're treating our organization too often as a broadcaster. And sometimes that is the right format. I'm not saying to stop doing that, but how can we be brought in to be hosts? How can we make spaces that make people go, I want to be a part of that. Like, this is so cool, right? So I think when we pivot to host, it really transforms how people think about our nonprofits. I put a couple common nonprofit journeys here, and you've all seen these before. And the biggest thing about relational marketing in my mind is this is not you throwing out your playbook. This is not you going, everything has to be different from here forward. It is you going, okay, so we're broadcasting, and now let's add on the relationship layer. So still do the thank you and the welcome call thank you plus next appeal, but how can we add in, maybe certain people get a welcome call, maybe at random you're like, hey, every 100th person, we're just gonna have a phone call. I know it seems crazy, that is challenging to scale, but you get so much incredible feedback in a one-to-one conversation with somebody who cares about what you're doing. When we're talking about advocacy campaigns, are we giving places for people to debrief about why what we do matters to them? And most of us are not taking that step. And finally, if we're looking at like a volunteer journey, do they know anybody else who's a volunteer? Like, that's special, right? You feel like you're a part of something when you get that opportunity to connect with other people who care about the things you care about. This one's big. To me, these are the layers we can kind of think about, and many of you are already probably doing parts of this as well for relational layers. So that welcome moment, again, majority of you probably in this room are setting up great welcome email series when you get on a platform like Engaging Networks. And so you're thanking your first time donors, you have a welcome newsletter, you're sharing the story behind the work. Where's your peer connection point? Where are you giving people an opportunity to connect after the fact? So one of the coolest examples personally I'm going to give is incredible organization, Faces Up Uganda, provides art services to youth. They organized a Zoom call for all of their North American donors, and we literally got to walk around the classroom with the kids who were doing their artwork. And then we got to chat about it afterwards and say why we were donating. And yes, that took time and energy to organize, but the excitement from that group, and that group has the most insane social media following for a group that has no marketing professionals. So, we can take things that are really exciting from other orgs and see how we can transport it over to our own. Recognition rituals. I don't know if anyone has a recognition ritual. For our community, we spotlight a member every Wednesday. Every Wednesday, that happens. And that was something we started really early on, and it's meant so much to those members to be seen that they become our advocates. They talk about us, they put it out on social media, they share those stories. So that's enormous. Obviously, it doesn't have to be a community member, but do you have an advocate, donor? I know we always have to be conscious of community-centered fundraising and being thoughtful in how we position highlighting donors. But if they're part of your community and they're a part of the story, like, we have to find ways to balance that. Repeat rhythm, I think that's really big. So for those of you who are part of the nonprofit Hive community and get our emails every Friday that say, hey, come and join us for a chat, come opt in for a chat. That email has gone out every Friday for the past 2.5 years, without fail. We have not missed a Friday. And people actually, I think, respond well when they know what to expect. So when you shift the goalpost all the time and people don't know what to expect, I think right now we're all exhausted. And rhythm is really, really important, and that's something we can build in as nonprofits to be this like safe place to land, where they're like, oh, it's every second Wednesday we get that newsletter and we get that update. Like, that's actually really powerful. Or do you have an open door policy where it's, we'd love to hear your feedback as donors. Come and join us on, this Friday, and we're gonna do it again in a month. Those stories can be really powerful. And supporter voice mechanisms, like, how can they support your messaging? And I know this is really scary sometimes as legacy nonprofits. What are people going to say about us? But when you let someone talk about you in their words, it has way more power and it builds more trust. So there's always a risk. There's a risk to any of the marketing we're doing. I don't think we can totally stop that from happening, but I think people are looking for signals of trust, and this is one of them that we can employ. I really believe what we are measuring is going to teach the organizations what we care about. So like other individuals out there, if we measure this, why does it matter? So, there's a lot of traditional metrics, those are still going to continue to matter, but it's moving into other relational metrics, like who's returning consistently, who is putting out peer referrals, like do we have user-generated stories that are happening? That is an interesting signal, and I think it's going to be one that's going to matter more as it's harder and harder to get market share. And, AI, such an interesting space to exist in, I think, right now as a marketer, because I know I can generate 3 times more content than I could a couple of years ago. I'm sure most of you are in the same spot. It's incredible. It also means the noise is noising, and I think like the Grinch meme, I didn't put any memes up, shut up. But the Grinch meme of like he's holding his head and it's the noise, like people are really, really feeling that. And my 10-year-old the other day was watching a Jackie Chan movie and going, well, this is AI. No, it's not, right? But everyone is skeptical. Everything you put out is being like combed over to see if it's real. And we have to think about that. We have to be aware that everyone is wondering whether it's AI, so if we actually care and we actually want other people to care back, it can't be just AI. Like that's actually eroding trust in nonprofits, I think, in a really big way, and we have the most to lose. Nike's not gonna lose out if they get caught using AI for something to connect with their audience. It's just not gonna be the same. So, AI is really built. I like to use it for drafting, summarizing, thought partnership. I'm a team of 2, and my co-director, who mostly does operations, is exhausted hearing about marketing. So this is my thought partner. This is a really cool way to use it, and it can speed up production, absolutely. But this is where the humans on your team really need to be thoughtful, because this is the cool opportunity to show care, stewardship, belonging, and just being seen. I think we have to remember too that we want to be seen, but of course the people in our networks also want to be seen. So let it help us move faster, but automation, I think, in AI automation in particular, we just have to really be a little careful about how we use that. Oh, the time's running down. Okay, so start your relational marketing plan next week. This is just a little QR code. If anyone wants to play around with it, it's coming out with the slides later, so absolutely, and I can share it if anybody wants to get in touch. The whole point of it is, like, like I noted earlier, don't throw everything out. This is not going, oh my goodness, our marketing is horrible, we have to just only do relational marketing. I'm sure most of your marketing is on point, you guys are doing great work. But where is the opportunity? What's the one journey? Maybe it's your volunteers, maybe it's your new one-time donors. Where can you select that audience and find a dead end? Because I can guarantee there's somewhere with a dead end. Like, and maybe there's a perfect marketing team here. It's not mine, for sure. We found a dead end recently in our own welcome series to kind of go, people don't totally know what we're building. And that was a dead end. And so we literally just put on LinkedIn yesterday, come and learn about our community. And tons of people started signing up. Because clearly that was just a dead end where we were broadcasting and people didn't know what was happening. Step 3, find that little crunchy relational layer where you can like play around with it, and then start finding a way to measure that signal, right? If no one was interested and everyone understood what we were building, we wouldn't have had signups immediately yesterday. So clearly it was an immediate indicator that people wanted to know more about what we're doing. So that QR code just takes you to a fun little place where you can play around with that. And when reach gets less reliable, relationship is the strategy. It is the strategy. You start building these pieces in, this is going to be how you support later, and the time went off, oh my god. If people would like to connect with me, here's my information. We like to say loud on LinkedIn, and that's me, so you are welcome to mute me if we connect and you don't want to hear everything I have to say. We also have the nonprofit Hive community. There are 3,000 of us in 90 countries connecting regularly, and there's a bunch of people in this room who are part of that community. It's funny. And Community Hives is where I do community building work with people in the nonprofit sector. So thanks, that's it.
Yeah, it's refreshing to not just be like talking about like AI segmentation, even though that is really cool and important if you're doing that, but
I do that too.
Yeah, but having, being out there, having real conversations with people kind of feels scary, but it's kind of where the real goal lies.
Absolutely.
And there are a few questions actually on this thread. Can you give examples of how to move from personalization to intimacy?
The number one thing I do, and this, again, I'm going to note, this is not super scalable. If your whole goal is to reach 1,000 people, this is not scalable, but I take 3 conversations with community members every week, no matter what. And they're new, people who've been around a long time, people who I just think are interesting humans, but I purposely get out there and engage with folks. And sometimes I just pick them at random. Here's a cool person, I've never talked to them. That I would honestly say could, they reflect back to me what they think my marketing says and what would matter to them about my messaging. And so all of my messaging that you're gonna see that's annoying out there, it's all crafted by my community members. So they tell me what matters.
Better than just blankly guessing what's right.
And yeah, I was trying to not do that.
Cool. Yeah, sometimes the unscalable stuff is also the most valuable and translates into things you can actually scale down the road.
Absolutely.
This is listed as less a question, more of an observation. The big data suggests donor loyalty is on the decline, but I can imagine that the donors who got a Zoom call tour of the classroom are going to significantly outperform on donor retention versus a group that didn't. Any thoughts that you want to add to that comment or that observation?
Absolutely. I think that people who are innovating and finding new ways to create intimacy, and I don't know if anyone's heard this language for AI recently, but I heard it called synthetic intimacy. It's pretend intimacy. Like, we can make it feel kind of like something, but I think all our spidey senses are tingling and we're like, oh, that's not real. And so it's really hard to fake a Zoom call in Uganda. So sometimes that's the purpose, is to make, like, people know it's real, and that's 2 years ago as an example too. It's just the biggest standout one where I was like, this is so amazing. And it's still talked about to this day, so yeah, it stands out.
You just reminded me of a term like parasocial relationships.
Yes.
That's something that you give thought to. So like the classic example is this was first studied I think in the 50s or 60s, like Walter Cronkite is on TV, the news anchor of America, and people saw this person day in and day out, and we started to realize that people feel like they know Walter Cronkite, but obviously didn't. And now today we have podcasts as mediums, we have LinkedIn Lives, we have ways to interface with people that we feel like we are starting to get to know, Any thoughts on like how these kinds of mediums can fit in, and then maybe where you go with once you have parasocial relationships being built?
Yeah, one of the biggest compliments I regularly get, it's scary because I don't know always what they mean by it, but people will hear me speak or come, see a LinkedIn Live or read what I write, and they're like, oh, you're exactly like I imagined. And I'm never sure exactly what they mean by that, but I take it as a compliment, because I think if we can showcase truly like the heart of our nonprofit and the people who work in it, if you're not leveraging your in-house folks if you're not leveraging them to talk about you positively, they're probably talking about you negatively somewhere. So, because people who are willing to talk about you positively tend to feel that way truly. And so I think it's a real power move right now to be authentic. And parasocial is absolutely part of it, because if your nonprofit presents in X fashion, and maybe that's cool memes, maybe that is, hey, this is the face of the nonprofit, and then that's consistent when people start donating and reading your emails and they're like, oh, that's exactly what I imagined, that's delightful. Like, we're all looking for real right now.
Yeah, I can definitely point to some of those moments where I met someone after the parasocial phase, and it's like, wow, years of like trying to get to know someone disappeared because I got to know them through their show or their newsletter or whatnot. Question for you, our public affairs team does a great job in building relationships with the advocacy community, but is also very protective about their lists. How would you suggest that we can convince them to allow us to try to solicit them for donations?
Lists are really, really complicated. I think people are very concerned about their privacy, going back to lots of great conversations here right now. I think there are natural ways. First of all, if you just buy someone's list, it's not always a great indicator that they're actually interested in what you offer. It can be, but it's not always a great indicator. I would be trying to build relationships with those partners for them to talk about you, and then those people on your list, their list that are actually interested will opt in. I think people have to give permission to be opted in at this point. Again, trust first and foremost.
Amazing. These are the questions from the Q&A in Hive. Were there any final questions from the floor? We just have a couple minutes. And if not, we'll transition over to lunch. Also a very famous, popular session, lunch.
Yes, lunch.
Cool. Thank you so much, Tasha. Appreciate it.